And we're back in Inside the Ropes, and for our end-of-year specials, you've already heard from Stevie Richards, and now it's time to hear from a friend of the show. He was here this time last year. He's everywhere, whether it's interviewing Bret the Hitman Hart, or whether it's for the Baltimore Sun, or the Layfield Report, and I'm sure that the next time there's a Royal Rumble in Canada, he will be an entrant in the Drew Carey jumpsuit. He is the one and only Arda Ocal. Arda, welcome back.
Thank you very much, Kenny, and I think I'm going to win that Canadian Royal Rumble, and I'm going to go on to WrestleMania and challenge the Canadian streak.
Well, there you go.
Held by the Goon, and the Goon is undefeated at WrestleMania, and I'm going to defeat him.
I will look forward to seeing it. So yeah, 2013's been a pretty big year in wrestling from the time that we spoke last. How have you found 2013 overall compared to maybe 2012?
Well, 2013 was definitely a big year for independent wrestling fans and also the internet wrestling community, because I think what we saw was the genesis of a new status in WWE, in the sense that we're seeing this uprising of talents who really cut their teeth in the independent circuit. And for a long time, this wasn't really, I mean, with the territory system, I guess that was sort of how it came about with guys in the 80s and the 90s, but since the territory system really doesn't exist, the independents are as close as you can get to that. So guys like Daniel Bryan and CM Punk and Antonio Cesaro, and these are 3 examples, and Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose as well, 5 examples of guys who really applied their craft for years in the independents before they had a chance with the biggest company in professional wrestling or sports entertainment, which is the WWE. So now we're seeing the fact that it's almost like there's an appreciation more than ever, and 2013 was a great example of that. I mean, SummerSlam was almost like the dream scenario for internet fans everywhere, where the darling of the independent scene, the guy who probably was never supposed to make the WWE but loved professional wrestling so much that he kept at it, Daniel Bryan, the spokesperson, the face of that movement, is facing the major star, the face of WWE, John Cena. And it's a competitive match, and the story is terrific, and the crowd, everybody, and I was there at the Staples Center in Los Angeles, everybody was interested, everybody was buying the story in the ring, and then, you take away the Money in the Bank cash-in by Orton, just the moment when Daniel Bryan beat John Cena, it was electric. It was probably one of the biggest pops of the year, except for Dolph Ziggler cashing in the day after WrestleMania. It was probably the biggest pop I heard all year, but that was very, very close.
And yeah, you're known for doing some tweeting during pay-per-views at Arda_Ocal, and you'd been tweeting about TLC, and you really enjoyed that show, and I think you'd mentioned how, in the end we got this sort of clean finish and got a new unified, undisputed champion of the world, of the universe, whatever they're going to call it. But it seemed like some people just expected so much more than just a sort of definite result.
It's funny, I've been reading people's complaints online, and a lot of them are, well, we shouldn't have had a specialty match with such an important title on the line, and it was such a lackluster ending. And I mean, at the end of the day, my question is, what were people expecting? My question is, why, are conspiracy theorists upset that their fantasy booking scenario didn't unfold the way it did, or did they not enjoy the match? Did they think that it was, what makes it lackluster? I thought the finish was out of the blue. It definitely seemed like it was this is a weird end to end the match, but that doesn't mean the entire match was bad. I enjoyed it. I thought there was a lot of drama in the match, and I thought that both guys did very well. And truthfully, I didn't mind that it was a TLC, and I didn't mind that the pay-per-view didn't have a TLC component to it, because this match was important enough for it to save the aspects for this match alone. So I'm not in that boat that I'm complaining about TLC. I thought that every match had a good moment or a good memory or something interesting about it. And so I'm overall fine with TLC.
But one of the big things in 2013 for WWE was the new reality show Total Divas, and I wondered, what did you think of it? Did you watch it throughout its run?
I love it. I absolutely love that show. I think there should be more programming like that within the WWE sphere. At first, I was skeptical only because I was like, I hadn't had an investment in the Divas division in such a long time, which is such a bad thing to say because there's so many talented people there. The way that they're portrayed on television, I just wasn't buying anything. And I was like, let me give this a try. And once I realized how open they were going to be with the show, I mean, I think for hardcore fans or longtime fans, I think the best part of the show is all of the scenes backstage and the interactions. I think that that's the best part. You know, when you see them talking about, oh, this storyline is coming up, or when you're seeing, I mean, like, I have just as much fun peeking out the cameos in every episode than I do the actual storyline. You know what I mean? Like, I love when there's, hey, look, that's Seth Rollins in the, or Damian Sandow in the background, and, oh, look, there's a big Sheamus head backstage. Like, I love that stuff. Like, I think it's hilarious. And I love that WWE has opened its doors. I mean, this is really the gateway show to WWE really opening their doors fully, given the right context. And so this is a sign for things to come. I mean, for 2014, I could definitely expect to see a lot more programming like this. I'm actually looking forward to seeing Legends House when it finally drops, and I'm hoping it does.
Yeah, Legends House is one of those shows that ever since they aired the network promo at the beginning of 2012, I've just been dying to see that show. But yeah, Total Divas for me is almost like a guilty pleasure because when I watch it, you know, I'm kind of like, I can't believe that I'm so hooked on what's going to happen after Natalya farts during a match. But I was, you know, and I kept watching, and every episode's got such a good hook to keep you into the next one. And did you see the season finale this past weekend?
Absolutely, and you know what's funny is that everyone's like, hey, John Cena should turn heel. Well, he kind of turned heel with the female community, didn't he? I
always laugh at when he, do you remember when he went to Daniel Bryan's house for the first time? And and he was like, yeah, this guy doesn't even have a TV. And he was sort of picking out these little things, and I was like, yeah, if you want to see a heel John Cena, just watch him on Total Divas and you'll get what you want. So, and we all obviously want to see a documentary on Tensai and how he lost his lordship and how he's fallen from grace and ended up in a funky team.
Yeah, and where are they now with Sakamoto?
But yeah, the network, So I guess we should talk about that a little bit because WWE, there's a lot of rumors out there that the announcement that they have that they're going to make in Las Vegas in the first week in January is going to be network related. What do you think it is going to be a sort of cable-based product that they're going to put out there, or do you think they're going to start off online?
I mean, I think that they've always wanted it to be cable-based. I think that was always the plan, and that was always the desire. And if it doesn't start like that, if it becomes like a Netflix-style thing that has a live stream, I think that the desire will always be to kind of push it towards cable. And to be honest, if WWE has all of its rights, television property rights, up for grabs at the same time, and if they're shopping them around now as a complete package, who's to say that WWE Network doesn't become one of those, one of the options or one of the requirements to assemble the entire WWE property library to your roster, and all of a sudden WWE Network becomes a channel in whatever, the ABC family or the NBC Universal family or whatever it is. That could very well be the case. Because right now, WWE has a very interesting situation coming up in that for the first time ever, they're able to shop around every single one of their rights. And that's a huge deal because that means that they're not, obviously the United States is their biggest television presence right now, and the one that's most in their face because they're based in the States. And in the past, they've always negotiated each show separately or only a couple at a time. You know, Raw is on an NBC-owned USA Network, and SmackDown is on an NBC-owned Sci-Fi, whereas Ion is on Ion Networks. So they're all on different properties. And so what's happening now is now they can go and negotiate with a major, like a Disney, which owns like a slew of channels, or a Fox, a 21st Century Fox, which owns a slew of channels, and NBCU, and say, hey, look at NASCAR. NASCAR got an $800 million a year for 10 years. That's $8 billion. They got that deal, and we have better numbers than them. we have better ratings, and our demographic is younger. So we deserve comparable money. And right now, WWE is making somewhere along the lines of $130 or $140 million a year. So WWE can now say, actually, we probably deserve at least 5 or 6 times that amount, if not 7 or 8. So it'll be interesting to see what they're able to negotiate. And I think that will be a very telling thing moving forward, because WWE will have a lot more potential and power to work with if they're making $700, $800, $900 million a year versus $140 million a year domestically on their television rights.
Yeah, for sure. I wanted to get your take on something, because I was listening to an interview that you did recently, and you had mentioned that you like the idea that even though there's a unified WWE champion, that you quite like the idea of there being 2 Money in the Bank matches still, and the conflicts that can come from that. And I wanted to ask you about it because last week we had Jim Cornette on the show, who obviously slightly outspoken.
Love it.
And we were talking. I was talking to him about the unification thing, and he had brought up a point that it's weird. I kind of sit on the fence with it, but I want to kind of get your take on it based on what you'd said about the Money in the Bank and what he says. And he had kind of said that to him the title belts now are just props, and that the Money in the Bank concept of, the guy coming in to pin the dead guy that's already been beaten by somebody else, that it devalues the title, and that it's another sort of tool in the toolkit of wrestlers that now they don't make money with it. And I wondered, what is your take on that? And in terms of Money in the Bank, is it something that can be a profitable thing and make the belt more special, or is what Jim's saying got some validity?
Well, Jim Cornette is one of the smartest minds in the history of wrestling, so absolutely I would listen to every single thing he said. My take on the Money in the Bank briefcase is, to scale it back, I think it's an attractive pay-per-view, first of all. I think that I like the idea. It's kind of like the Royal Rumble, right? If you have a match where there is a defined stake, and this is my problem with Survivor Series. Survivor Series matches don't have a stake. There's nothing for grabs. It's just an interesting match. But the problem is we see that match consistently throughout the year as an elimination tag, but then suddenly at a pay-per-view it's packaged as a Survivor Series match. Well, we don't see the Royal Rumble every week on Raw or every month on Raw, and the Royal Rumble has a stake. The winner gets a title shot at WrestleMania. Similarly, Money in the Bank, the winner gets a future WWE title shot whenever he wants it. So suddenly there's intrigue there on a weekly basis, and it makes me want to watch Raw a little bit more, or televised programs, because who knows whether this guy's going to cash in or not. So that I agree with that mentality, in the sense that it definitely creates suspense. The idea that the titles are props, I mean, that's absolutely true for many of them. The Intercontinental title and the United States Championship, I mean, do people still remember that Dean Ambrose was the U.S. champion? You know what I mean? Seriously, Curtis Axel was Intercontinental champion. I barely remember Cody Rhodes being Intercontinental champion. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many title reigns that just don't matter. The Intercontinental title is not something that is revered anymore, and it's unfortunate, but that's just the nature of the beast. And that's why I like what's happening with the tag team division right now, because Cody Rhodes and Goldust are defending titles, and they care about the titles, and they care about the tag team division. And we're getting all these teams that are caring about being tag teams. They look like a team, they act like a team, they like a team. The Real Americans, perfect example. The Usos, perfect example. The Primetime Players, another great example. And these guys, these teams, act like they care. And suddenly, if you have teams that act like they care and they're vying for the championships, then if the championships are consistently defended, and there's personal issues in there as well that draw money, as Jerry Jarrett would have on his office wall, then people will start to care. Because you have to make people care about those championships, and right now, other than the tag team division, which is sort of seeing a sort of renaissance, the titles don't matter. Like, the World Heavyweight Championship, Kenny, was really the Intercontinental title of the 80s. And
I guess with 2013 kind of coming to an end, inevitably people were talking about the Royal Rumble, and but I'm going to go one further, and I just want to get your sort of picks right now. If you had to name, just off the top of your head, what you think the top matches are going to be at WrestleMania 30, what would you say? What would your kind of your journalistic picks be?
There's a theory floating around that CM Punk will win the WWE title somehow against Randy Orton, and then we will see Daniel Bryan win the Royal Rumble, and then we'll have this dream main event between CM Punk and Daniel Bryan at WrestleMania. That would be hilarious and amazing, because I think a lot of independent wrestling fans would absolutely salivate over that. I would like to see, truthfully though, if we're going to see any big returns, like for a guy like Stone Cold Steve Austin, I'd want to see Punk and Steve Austin, just because I think that there's such a great storyline there. I do feel that a guy like Hulk Hogan, he might return. I think that is certainly a possibility, and he could be in somebody's corner or in a tag or something like that. The Undertaker defending his streak, I mean, Brock Lesnar's name's being floating around, but to me, I almost feel like it's an obligation that we see Undertaker and John Cena. I just feel like that's an obligation at WrestleMania. I think that has to happen. And truthfully, John Cena, to me, is the only guy on that roster right now where I would actually believe that this streak could be broken. And imagine how much of a heel he would be if he cheated to win. Like, that would be the biggest heel turn ever. Like, John Cena, Mr. Goody Two-Shoes, face of the company, like, pulls the tights or, like, uses brass knucks. Like, can you imagine that? Against The Undertaker and ends the streak at WrestleMania. People would piss on him forever. It would be, like, unbelievable heat. Not that it probably wouldn't happen, but I'm just saying. Like, I just play that scenario in my head, and I'm like, wow, that would be, like, you could cut the tension with a knife. People would riot, and it would be awesome.
Yeah.
So those are, sorry, you know what? The only thing I would say about the Daniel Bryan versus CM Punk, the only better match would be Daniel Bryan versus Shawn Michaels, and I really hope that happens.
Well, absolutely. And just to close off, if you could wish, send a Christmas wish to Santa Claus for something in wrestling in 2014, one wish, what would you wish for?
A big, huge push for 3MB, obviously. That's the one and only thing I want. I would wish for Shawn Michaels to return to the ring for one more match against Daniel Bryan at WrestleMania. And I would want that to be a 30-minute match, and it would be the greatest thing ever.
Absolutely. Arda, thank you so much for joining us, and have a good Christmas.
Take care. You too.